Welcome everybody to the Mastering Maize and Blue podcast series. This episode will be on resources for students deciding on a major. So if you're undecided or maybe uncertain entering your first year here, this is the episode for you. I'm one of your hosts, Drew Dykowski, joined with Roman. Before we jump into our introductions, Roman, do you have anything to add about this?
It's going to be a good resource for you guys figuring out if you're still undecided. Any resources on campus, we're happy to help. I'm undecided myself, but I'm narrowing it down to communications. Just a matter of actually declaring that major. I'm a first-year orientation leader, and I'm a sports writer for the Michigan Journal.
And as I said, I'm Drew. I'm currently majoring in secondary education with a focus in social studies and history. You kind of read that, like my little description there, and you probably think I got my life all figured out. But I'll be honest, about a year ago, I was completely lost. I was a business major for the first year and a half that I was here because I'm entering my junior year. I really did not like business. It was not for me. And I was very lost and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, I had the pleasure of meeting with our guest today, Jesse. We met during last summer during the orientations, and he really helped me get on the right track. So that's why we chose to bring him on as our guest today. So I'll let him introduce himself, though.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Stanghini. I'm an academic advisor / counselor with UM-Dearborn in the College of Business. I've been here for quite a while. I recently made a switch. I used to be in Castle for about 5 years, and then I recently switched over to business about 2 years ago. That's when I had the pleasure of meeting Drew and Solomon last year, like Drew was saying, and we developed a relationship and we talked about what they're interested in, what their strengths are, and now I think both of them have been their way to deciding exactly what their new career paths are, and I'm happy to be a part of that journey and watch them be successful as they grow into their new career paths.
Yeah, it's really helped me out, definitely. Like I said, I was very lost and I had no idea what I wanted to do. But meeting with Jesse, I think we met like 2 or 3 times during the last fall semester. We just, like Jesse said, we just talked. He asked me straight up front, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I was like, I needed that. I needed that straightforwardness, and it really helped me out. And hopefully this episode can help you all out a little bit as well. So Jesse, why don't we start with the first question though? You mentioned you've been at U of M Dearborn for a little while now. What's your favorite part about being at U of M Dearborn?
I think my favorite part about UM-Dearborn is working with students. I think if that piece was removed from my work, I think it would be a struggle to want to be motivational to students. I've had offers over the years to switch schools and complete universities, but I think I like the Dearborn community. I think it's tight knit. I think it's small enough where students, staff, faculty can have close connections and relationships that helps everybody, including the community, thrive and succeed. I think one of my favorite parts about UM Dearborn is over on main campus at the Castle building behind there, there's a Henry Ford estate, which I hope many of you have traveled and visited to. There are many paths, of course, the Henry Ford estate, as well as its gardens that I would encourage everybody to go take a walk. Furthermore, the EIC also has a lot of paths that you can walk on, as well as a lake that they maintain, which I think was a big stress reliever throughout the day, especially when I was over in Castle throughout the summer. I would go take like a 30-minute walk during lunch, which is helps me clear the mental health and some of the stress that we take on daily.
Yeah, those paths, I really enjoy walking those paths. Like I said, especially that like last fall semester when had a lot of stuff going on in my mind. Those paths to the Henry Ford Estate and behind the EIC were definitely one of my favorite parts of the campus too. Roman, do you want to take the next question? I'm not sure if Roman can hear me. So Jesse, I'll let you jump into your next question. What are some of your main responsibilities here on campus as a kind of a Castle advisor, but also as a COB advisor?
So I think the number one thing that students think that we do is help students register. While that may be true, I think that we also help students learn how to make the most of their college experience. So we do this by helping students understand program requirements, different university policies, but most of all, exploring campus resources, which many of them are free. Since advisors like myself are on the front lines with students, we're usually the first um, person that a student would get connected with or ask questions, which I think is good, because if we don't know the answer, 10 times out of 10, we're going to point you in the right direction to make sure that you get the right information that you need. I think me personally, I have a holistic advising approach where I try to take everything that students are doing, from with working with family or any sort of family care, in consideration. I think focusing on mental health and stress relief is the most important. So, not saying that academics are not important, but I also think that having fun sometimes and being involved on campus is just as important, if not more important, to help maintain the healthy balance of stress and mental health. I try to have a balanced advising approach, so I'd encourage all students to try to find the balance in your life, especially when it comes to academics.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I know for me, speaking as a student, you really need to find that balance, and it's really helpful when professors kind of are understand that you have more than just one class and you have a life outside of just going to school. So it's really helpful when you meet an advisor like yourself that understands that we kind of need that balance, and it might not be the best thing to just kind of take a bunch of classes all the time and have little to no social life. So um, you definitely do a great job on that front. Roman, looks like you're back. How about you
Yeah,
take the
sorry.
next question?
Sorry about that. What is your favorite part about your job, Jesse?
I think the best part is keeping in touch with students. So oftentimes, even after graduation or in the community, I see students. And we were just talking about Impractical Jokers before this. And in fact, at one of the concerts that I went to, I ended up running into one of the students that I met with, and he subsequently graduated. So I think that part, and watching them, make it across the finish line and seeing what they're doing, seeing what businesses they've created or volunteering or initiatives that they're working on, I think that's the best part for me, is seeing students grow and find out about yourself. Like with Solomon and Drew, I think just in 1 year, both of you have grown so much, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in 2 3 years. Where are you guys going to go? And I think it's important that we stay connected, because then in the future, I can pair up students with yourself, and then you can be a mentor, and then we have a kind of full circle educational luau.
Yeah, I know I kind of keep bringing it back to myself a little bit, but I know like last year when we met during the COB orientations and everything like that, and I felt like we kind of really made a really nice connection, made a nice relationship, and that kind of grew into the next semester. And I always noticed with you is like whenever we were walking around campus, or whenever I was walking through Fairlane, you were always talking to a student and connecting with a student, which is really cool. And it really kind of it was really obvious to me that that was your favorite part of your job. So I wasn't surprised that that was your answer for sure. And I know also for me, it was really nice because our conversations like in the fall semester were like, I hate my life. I don't know what I'm doing. And then like we talked a few times before the quarantine hit, just like kind of we just ran into each other on campus, and it was a lot more positive. So yeah,
I think the one thing that it's good about having advisors like yourself, Jesse, is that the students know how much you want to help them and know that they're valued and you want them to succeed. And I think that shines through completely. And I think it's one of the best parts of having advisors like you on campus.
Thank you. It's very kind of you both.
Um, so I guess we'll kind of jump into this next question, which is a little bit more kind of focused towards what this podcast episode is about. So a lot of students, they think that, and myself included, that being undecided going into your freshman year is a bad thing. Do you think it's a bad thing?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I think it's a good thing for students to learn more about yourself, what you're interested in, and also what you're not interested in. When I work with students, I try to figure out what they like and what they're good at. So, what are your strengths? Then from there, we have some options to explore. There are plenty of times when students aren't sure what they want to do, or maybe they have too many interests or lots of interests. That's when we can reverse the thinking and try to pare down or cross off some areas that you don't like. Then eventually, either way, we're going to have a list of potential areas to consider. Then from there, an academic advisor or a career person or a faculty member can help you distinguish between what course you might want to try, or what major you want to try, or what industry leaders that you want to meet with, to try to see if that's what you want to do. So if you want to be a teacher, you should probably go meet with Lindsay and John in the education building and have a conversation about what it means to be a teacher. What are the admission requirements? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's the same exact advice that, and kind of the same process that you and I went through. And I know for me, because I decided to go into teaching, I went to my old high school. I talked to a couple of my old high school teachers that really helped me out, and I also talked to Lindsay and Jonathan. But Roman, I figured that you could probably maybe add a little bit more on this too, because you just got done with your freshman year and you entered Undecided. Do you want to add any like tips or anecdotes that you experienced just last year?
Yeah, I was started out as a communications major over the summer, but then I changed to undecided right before the year started. So I had an idea, I just didn't want to fully commit to that, and I got that sentiment from a lot of advisors as well and other staff members. They said don't rush into anything that you might later regret. You know, take everything all together and then decide. It's better to decide when you absolutely know than at the very beginning. And we'll get into that a little later too. But um, I don't know if you see this a lot with your students, Jesse, that many students know what they want to do already. They just are undecided because they're afraid of commitment. And I guess I can say the same for a little bit myself. They don't want to see that maybe next to their name because it'll carry with them the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think that's true, Roman, what you're saying, that there's this notion out there that students have to pick early, or even when you pick, like you're set for life. Or, Drew said one time, like, I want to be a teacher. And I'm like, well, you're not going to be a teacher for the rest of your life. It's only for a short time or a decent part of your life. So I think it's important to be open to the changes. Even if you're declared, pre-law in a philosophy major, be open to the fact that you can also get a business degree, you can also get an art history degree and still go on to law school, and that may be better for you. So I think it's about picking your major, but it's also about being open to other possibilities that may come down the road. And I think that's just about learning about yourself, and the more that you learn about yourself, the more easier that decision to choose a major or career path will help.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm going to bring it back to myself, but of course I'm just kind of providing my own life experiences. But I remember at my grad party after I graduated high school, my parents just want me to be happy and everything, but I had a lot of relatives and other people that maybe didn't want me to go into teaching, and that kind of led me into my decision to not instantly go into teaching and be undecided at the beginning part of my college career. So ultimately, like you said, Jesse, you just have to find what you want to do and kind of just go for it and kind of ignore all the outside noise. But yeah.
Yeah,
um,
you will get a lot of those questions from family, friends, whoever. Oh, what's your major? What's your major? And you shouldn't feel bad for saying undecided. You should, be sure of what you're getting yourself into, and make the best decision for yourself when you can.
Tell them that you're deciding. It's an action verb. You are currently in the process of deciding. You're not undecided because you're currently trying to figure out what you're going to decide.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
that's a great tip, and it segues perfectly into our next question. Is Jesse, what do you usually tell students aside from what you just said who are undecided?
I think lots of students are trying to figure out what their majors are. So even if you've declared majors, I meet with tons of students who even on their first day say, I want to be X major. And even on the same day, that could change. And I think thinking about your declared major, again, is not for the rest of your life. It's for a short time. And it's okay if it changes. I think being open to possibility is the number one thing, exploring who you are, what do we have to offer. Maybe there are different faculty that you can meet with that would be able to help guide you in a certain direction. I think the number one piece of advice here is to put yourself out there. So I think one of the main advice that I received when I was in your shoes was you're going to get out of this experience what you put into it. So if you are full-fledged jumping into and trying to figure out what you want to do, then you're going to go meet with an advisor. You're going to go meet with a career counselor. You're going to go meet in the community. You're going to go to different websites and explore. And I guarantee you, the more effort you put into it, the more effort that you will see come out of it at the end. And I think Drew and Solomon and Roman are perfect examples of that because they care and they're motivated to find out what they like. And I think that will show and prove once they get to the interview stages for internships and future jobs. I think employers will notice that and enjoy their journey and how they can reflect on it.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. The most important thing is just to kind of put yourself out there. And I mean, yeah, did I kind of quote unquote waste a year and a half of my life because I was a business major? Yes. But I learned a lot about like Excel and PowerPoint and a lot of different skills that I can then use for my like my teaching career, which really helped me out. So even if you're undecided and you take some of those classes and you might think, quote unquote, that it's a waste of time, it really does. It'll still pay dividends and you'll still learn a lot. And you'll also kind of learn what you like and what you don't like. You just got to put yourself out there. I had one friend who was like engineering, and then he realized he hated engineering after a year, and now he's like a business communications major. So
If I can add, I don't think it's just the classes that can help you decide whether you want, what major you want to take. It's also the organizations, the clubs, the other events on campus that you know that you want to do or you are interested in. Go do it, and if you like it, then maybe that's something you want to explore as a career path or a major. It's not just the classes you take that help you explore the different career paths.
Yes, like Roman is saying, student activities is going to be more imperative for students to be involved. So when you get those emails talking about student organizations or being involved on campus virtually, I would encourage everybody to do that, whether there's a major fair, a career fair, or there's just an open conversation with other students, faculty, and staff. I would encourage you to do that. And Drew, I think between you and I and whoever is watching this, I think you didn't waste a year of your life. I think that year and a half of your life kind of pointed you in this direction because we checked off the boxes that you didn't want to do. You learned about yourself. You have a lot of transferable skills. So, like you said, PowerPoint, Excel, I guarantee you, you will use that in your future despite whatever your major is.
yeah, I've already used it in my few education classes, and I'm like some people are like, how do I use PowerPoint? And I'm like, well, I took a whole class on PowerPoint, so I'm ready to go. Not to disrespect any of my education friends, but also it was really helpful for me to experience that because business was always like the thing that I felt like I wanted to do / should do. But when I kind of got out there and interacted with people, and then also talked to people that were in the education field, I realized that my personality and my interests just didn't line up with business. So thank you for making me feel better that I didn't waste a year of my life. But
I promise
uh,
you didn't, Drew.
Roman, how about you take our next question?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on it with, student activities, but what other resources are on campus for important for undecided students?
So, like everyone is seeing on the screen, if you're listening to audio only, Career Services is a specific office designed to help students identify different career paths. So, for example, they have what's called like assessments or like a personality test. It's basically a series of questions that helps you explore more about yourself. So, they'll give you a certain situation or certain preferences. And then that result helps you identify, okay, well, because I'm XYZ, maybe I should think about fields that relate to that. So for me, when I did a lot of these focus tests, it constantly said I should be a counselor. It constantly said I need to be working with people. And of course, I didn't listen to anything my career advisor said like 15 years ago, but here I am giving that same advice. And I think it's important to visit with these people often. So career services is a great resource. For students in business, we have the ICMC, which stands for Internship and Career Management Center, which is specifically designed for business students. There are many resources on campus in addition to career services and staff. Meeting with faculty, discussing their interests and their suggestions can help also give you a different perspective. I also think meeting with advisors in the STAR office, shout out to Linda Diozegi and Andy Beverly, they do a great job in helping students understand what they want to do and helping them navigate that career path. And I think, again, putting yourself out there, meeting these different people, these are just opinions. At the end of the day, students are driving the cars. I'm just in the passenger seat. I'm just a pilot saying, hey, there's a skunk on the road or you're going to miss your exit. At the end of the day, you're the one that's driving the car. We're just here to support you in your journey, no matter what happens. Whether you make it across the finish line or you crash your car, we're going to be there to help you pick up the pieces.
Yeah, I've actually taken the focus test, the focus assessment first semester during the cruise program, which is something that we'll get to in another podcast. But the focus assessment really helped me. It gave you career options and then which majors you need to go into those career paths. Obviously, don't take it uh, as it is. Like obviously, you don't listen to what it says. You can still have your ultimate say at the end of the day, but it really helps you give an idea of what is out there that you never really experienced or found out before.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny, Jesse, when you said how you just didn't listen to it because, funny enough, I took many of these tests, kind of leading into my like senior year of high school, like when I was about to start college, and I always got like helping people or kind of like the same things that you got, and I just ignored it because that's just who I am. So um, also, and I know we're not just saying this because you're here, but advisors, I don't think we can stress enough how great you all are. Obviously, I've had a lot of really great positive interactions with you, but you mentioned Linda. She was when I was in start my freshman year, she helped me out a lot as well. So definitely with your advisors, like you said, it's not just for classes; it's also just to make sure that you're doing what you want to do and helping you decide on a major. But yeah. Obviously, we kind of keep mentioning how it's okay to enter your first freshman year undecided on a major. It's even okay by your second year you're still not decided on a major. But eventually, you do kind of have to decide. So when would you recommend a student decides on a major?
Generally, I would say sooner the better. There are rules and policies and encouragements and motivational speakers from advisors that will say, hey, you should probably decide on something before 60 hours. And that's part of the perspective of we're trying to help students graduate in and around the 120 or 130, depending on what program you're in. And I think the longer that students wait to decide their major, that just extends your graduation timeline. And I would try to help students see that if you're going to get an undergrad degree in 6 years, that's perfectly fine, but could you wrap it up in 5 and then maybe spend that extra year in grad school? So I think deciding sooner than later is generally the best thing, but it's okay. So even if you decide like after year 1 that you want to be in a business major, and then we try a few business courses. If it doesn't work out, then we go back and we try something different. That's why I think going out and putting yourself out there sooner than later helps, because you want to try to do this between years 1 and 2. Once you get to 60 credits, you're almost halfway there, depending on what program you're getting. So I think it's important for you to explore early. So we were just meeting with students the other day with new student orientation, and this one student kept asking me about electives, like, Jesse, do I need to take electives? And I said yes, because electives are good. I think that they were interested in, criminology and psychology, even though they were a business student. So we talked about maybe registering for CRJ 200, which is like an introduction criminal justice class, and Psych 101. These are introductory topics that can help students explore very early on what your majors are. So again, I think sooner than later, meet with people, try different things, because you may not get an opportunity as you progress towards graduation. So I think early on is the best way.
Yeah, being an orientation leader in Castle, we get a ton of undecided students almost every orientation, and we always get those same questions about what should I register for. I mean, pretty much say the same thing you say, Jesse. Just explore, try many different things out. We always recommend, psych. That's a popular one among freshmen, whether undecided or not. Um, but there's also many classes that are versatile and and like that. So we always recommend exploring everything.
Yeah, and I think my experience is probably the perfect example of why it's important or to kind of feel things out and test things out your first and second year because like I said, I took like an accounting class, I took a intro to business class, and I wouldn't have known that business wasn't for me had I not taken those classes early on. So and also, I mean, I took my education classes my second year as well, and I learned that that's something that I really enjoy. For sure. So yeah, that's great advice, I think. Roman, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, we always touch on it throughout throughout the presentation. But how often do you run into students who are confused or undecided about their major?
All the time. So even like I was saying before, on the first day of orientation, students declare X, and then by the end of the conversation, they want Y. On the flip side, I also have students who are about to graduate who are approaching 100 credits and wanting to change their major, which I think generally is okay as long as we talk about their different options. So on one side, I'd say, if you were a gender studies major and you stayed in Castle, you could graduate in 30 credits. But if you went to your new major in business, it's going to take you 55. So I think part of advisors, what we do is we help students kind of lay out your options and we weigh the pros and cons. At the end of the day, you are the ones that are deciding what you want. But I think it's absolutely normal for students that are confused or still deciding all the way up into senior status. Now, of course, we don't encourage this. We want you to choose your major within years 1 and 2, because then we can start focusing on internships and more in-depth projects within your classes to help put the theory that you're learning in the classroom into practice for that internship or job or volunteering. I think many students are unsure, but again, the more that you put yourself out there and figure it out, learn about yourself, I promise the easier that it will be.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, I'm just speaking as a student, but of all the people and all the friends that I've met, not to be cocky or arrogant, I don't have that many friends, but all the people that I've run into while being at school here, I think I've only met two people who are like absolutely like 100%. This is what I want to be. This is who I want to do. One of them is fellow orientation leader Michael. Um, so I think it's even just speaking as a student. I mean, you're always gonna run into people, and it is kind of nice to kind of have that camaraderie of people that like, okay, so I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one that doesn't really know what's going on. So yeah, it
Yeah,
is really nice to kind of have that almost
whether
brotherhood.
whether you're undecided then going to a major, or whether you're going from switching majors entirely, you're on the same boat. It's just a matter of the different, just the title. That's the only difference. You don't know what you want to do, but you have an idea of where you could go, and that's the ultimate end goal.
So I want to jump in and say something about that. Even adults, even colleagues that I've worked with in the past in different industries want to change their job. I just read a statistic today that was saying that 1 out of 3 people during this coronavirus have considered changing career paths. And I think that's interesting because that's saying that, well, 1 out of 3 people may not be fully invested into their role or their work or their position. And I think that's important because if you're not giving it your all, then why are you in that role? I think it's important to continue to explore, even though we're talking about academics and in years 1 and 2. I think it's just as important to explore and re-explore your interests after you graduate. Just like Drew was saying, taking some of those personality tests after you graduate can also help because you want to make sure that you are still aware of yourself and what you want to do even after graduation.
Yeah, if I could just kind of add some of the advice that you gave me when we were meeting last fall was when you said, I think you mentioned it early on today, but when you said that what you choose now doesn't have to be what you do for the rest of your life, because I had a ton of stuff in my head. And right now I know I want to do teaching. But even like down the road, I could see myself potentially being an advisor like yourself, working for a university. That's something that I feel like I would enjoy doing as well. I'm also the sports editor for the newspaper here at UM-Dearborn, so I have an interest kind of in journalism. So who knows, maybe I'll do that eventually. But I think the real important thing that you said was that really resonated with me was how this what you choose now doesn't have to be what you choose for the rest of your life. And as you kind of mentioned there, people, adults right now especially, are still trying to figure out what they want to do. So that really helped me out. Um, so
You want to get the next question?
yeah, this kind of leads in a little bit. If so, say for example, if I choose a major or come into college with a specific major, is it okay for me to switch majors like again, or like more than once, or is everything instantly set in stone as soon as like is there like a limited amount of times I'm allowed to change my major? Um, yeah.
So I don't think there's a specific limit. Now, do you want to change your major 65 times before you get the 60 credits? Probably not. I think the amount of work on your end and my end would be ridiculous, but that's beside the point. I think that nothing is ever set in stone. So everything is fluid, everything changes. We know for a fact that, nothing lasts forever. Even a straight line, ends up meeting each other down the road. So I think you can change your major infinite times, but why would you want to? I think sometimes certain colleges have different admission requirements, which may mean that you have to have a certain GPA in order to be accepted into that desired college. But I think the best thing to do is to reach out to your academic advisor or the unit that you want to go to so that we can make a plan together to help you figure out what your options and what are your next steps. In general, I don't think that you want to change your major, like I said, like 65 times. I think on average, the statistic is about 5 or 6 times. And I know for me, that was definitely true. I definitely changed my major. I think it was 4 times officially on record. But of course, behind the scenes, I wanted to be a judge. I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a landscaper. I mean, you name it, I wanted to be it. But I think reaching out to my advisor really helped me put together the pieces about who I am and what I want to do. If not for my academic advisor, I don't think I would be an academic advisor. So I think I'm just kind of paying it forward to all the great advisors that have come before me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned there how like behind you only officially change your major like 5 or 6 times, but behind the scenes you were a ton of different things. Because I think officially I changed my major I think 3 times I think, but like I was like maybe I can be a journalist, maybe I'll be this, maybe I'll be that. I had a ton of things going on in my head, but like you said though, 65 times is a little bit excessive. So maybe you want to kind of narrow it down to like 5 or 6. But Roma, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's like we said before, the advisors and the orgs and the assessment tests we talked about earlier, they'll pretty much narrow you down if you're truly undecided. Taking those tests or exploring campus will give you a good pool of limited options, so you're not deciding between every major on campus.
Yeah, for sure. So as we mentioned, you don't want to do the process 65 times, but when you do want to switch your major, what is the process of switching majors or declaring a major officially?
So the first thing you're going to want to do is meet up with an academic advisor first. I think if you're in Castle, for example, and you want to switch over to College of Business, then you should reach out to an advisor like myself or Lori or Andy or Warren so we could have a conversation about what it means to be in the College of Business. Same is true if you want to be in education. So just like Drew reached out to John and Lindsay and they were able to connect and make a plan. Then from there, the second piece is you want to complete a change of major form. So like Drew said, he's completed this form 3 times, but
Yes.
he's not graduated and there could still be another 3 times. So I think it's important for you to reach out to your advisor, touch base, get a connection, and then complete that change of major form. And then hopefully you're accepted to the new unit. And then you have another meeting with an advisor to make sure that everything was covered.
And is change of major form just from one major to another, or can it go from undecided to a major itself?
So yeah, you can go from you're being decided to a specific major like psychology. But however, if you're trying to get into a specific college like the College of Business or Engineering, they have certain prerequisites that one needs to meet. All of these admission requirements are online. So if you go to the college's website and click on the admissions tab, you'll be able to find out what GPA do you need, how many credits do you have to have in order to get to a certain major. So in business, a little bit different. There's a two-tiered admission. Whereas in Castle, you can go from deciding to a gender studies major or a psychology major or a history major, usually with that change of major form.
Yeah, and as you kind of alluded to there, I'm very familiar with that change of major form. So if anybody needs any help with that, just send me an email. Um, so if so, for example, again, if I'm thinking about switching majors or I'm trying to decide between majors, what would you recommend I do to gain more clarity and make a decision? We've kind of alluded to it in other questions, but specifically, what would you recommend I do?
I think the best thing to do is to not wait. I find that a lot of students have this apprehensiveness or anxiety. One student just recently confided in me that they needed their inhaler before they met with me. And I think that's interesting because, they constantly waited to have the conversation. But once we did, I could tell that there was a huge burden lifted off their shoulders. So I think it's important for you to not wait. Reach out to one of us as soon as possible. I promise you, we are not scary. We'll be able to help you no matter what you say to us, we'll be able to help you out. I think if you're a new student, the best resource to go to is the START office. So before we mentioned Andy Beverly and Linda Diozegi, these two individuals can help pair you up with an advisor in the START office to make sure that you are exploring different options. So again, I think the first thing is to not wait, go and do it. There's no time like the present, some famous person said. So I think it's important for you to reach out and talk to your advisors, talk to the people in your community so we can figure out what exactly you want to do.
Yeah, that's perfect advice. I mean, I did all that, and that really helped me out and figure out everything. And you mentioned it there when you meet with an advisor. I know for me, I was a little nervous and after I got done talking to you, it was like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. Because I remember I was sitting in my accounting class, and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. So I went right down to the COB advising office and asked to set up an appointment with you. And after we met, it was like the world was off. And I think a lot of students, I'm not sure if any of the students that are here today have those same issues, but it's a lot of times you feel like you're letting somebody down. You feel like you're not living up to your family's expectations. I'm just speaking from my own personal experiences. So you're just putting a lot of kind of unneeded pressure on yourself. So yeah,
I
all
can
those.
I can definitely agree about the lifting of the stress. Whether even coming from undecided, you're still wondering and you're still exploring. But ultimately, once you declare, like I will, very soon, I feel like a weight has been lifted off, and I can start answering people's questions about what I want to major in.
The famous question at Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, and funny enough, I think I switched my major like right before Thanksgiving last year, so I already I was settled on that front. But I think the most important thing is just meet with your advisor. They're not scary. Kind of sum that whole thing up. But I've asked the last few questions, so I'm going to throw it to Roman. How about you ask a question?
Yeah, we've asked a lot of different questions, but I think it all can be boiled down to what advice would you give to a new UMD student?
I think I would put it out in one sentence. So this is probably my number one takeaway for today is to put yourself out there. And secondly, you're going to get out of this experience what you put into it. Both of my academic advisors in undergrad and grad actually gave me the same advice, even though they didn't even know each other. But at the time, it really meant something to me. The day that I was told that, the next day I got a job because I went and I started applying to certain places and I made that connection and I really put myself out there. And I think that's when I started to see that what I put into it, I got out of it. From that point forward, I never looked back and I put in 1,010% every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we are still primarily a commuter campus, but you can get the full college experience out of being at UM-Dearborn. And I mean, I'm doing stuff like this. I'm an orientation leader. If you would have told me that when I was entering my freshman year, I would have just laughed in your face because I was very kind of reserved in high school. I didn't really talk that much, and now I'm talking all the time. So you'll definitely learn a lot about yourself and grow if you put yourself out there for sure. Roman, do you have anything to add to that?
I completely agree with everything you're saying. Personally, in high school, I was a baseball player. I've been playing sports my whole life, but I knew coming into freshman year that I wouldn't be playing anymore, and I was really curious as to what would happen. And I kept hearing it from my parents and friends, like everything happens for a reason. You'll find something eventually, and that's how I kind of got into this orientation role. Drew, you reached out to me to join the Michigan Journal. I never thought that would happen, but I'm glad I took that opportunity, and I think that'll carry on over the next few years, and even lead to the more opportunities in the future.
Yeah. You never know unless you try. I think that's the most important thing. Um, so I think this is the last official question we have, but just kind of a little bit lighthearted question here. Any fun facts about yourself, Jesse, that you want to share with the group?
So the photo that you all saw at the beginning, I had talked to Solomon because apparently my photo was too professional for the podcast. I wanted to make something a little bit more relatable. So I scrambled through all my old phones and I found this one photo that my wife and I went to Asia just last summer, which feels like 10 years ago. That was the first time for me to get out of North America. I'm originally from Toronto. So me getting out of North America was a big feat for me considering where I came from. On a personal note, I think I really love music. So if I didn't have this Zoom background, you would see that I have like all these synthesizers and drum machines and guitars. So on my free time, I like to mix music. I like to DJ for fun and just collect and listen to records. I feel like I'm an 80-year-old trapped in a 30-year-old's body with the type of music and things that I like.
Any
Yeah,
fun facts about you, Drew?
no, well, to talk about Jesse's real quick, I had no idea that you were from Toronto or that you really were into music. That's very cool. Um, Fun facts. I guess we'll stick with the music theme because you kind of said that you feel like you're an 80-year-old trapped in a 30-year-old's body. I'll be honest. I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but I hate today's music. Like it's just gross, and I just despise it. So like classic 80s, 70s rock. That's like usually the stuff that I like to listen to. And I don't that not a lot of other people, at least my age, kind of agree with that. So that's my fun fact. How about you, Roman?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I was a sports writer. I'm a sports writer for the Michigan Journal, and if you really know me, that would make perfect sense because I'm a sports junkie. I'm a diehard Lions fan. My dad has season tickets. Hopefully, we get
I'm
to go
sorry.
in the fall. I don't know if we can or not, but we'll see. But uh, big sports fan over here.
Yeah, sports are awesome. Um, so I guess now, Jesse, Roman, was there any like additional questions or things that kind of popped up that we didn't maybe touch on that you want to add before we kind of throw it to any of the students that are listening in right now, if they have any questions they want to ask?
I just want to say thank you for providing me with this opportunity to speak to you all. And I think your stories and your personal life experience brought into this podcast really helps students understand that, we've all been there. I was just in those shoes not too long ago, and UOLs are or were in those shoes not too long ago. So I think it's important for people listening to know that You know, we're all in this together. We've all experienced what you're experiencing. So I think just reach out, talk about it, join a network of people, join a student org, put yourself out there, and I guarantee good things will happen.
Yeah, I think that's well said. So I guess any students, if you have any questions right now, now's the time to ask. You can put them in the chat feature, or you can just unmute yourself and ask anything. But the contact information is right there, or it was right there. Now it's back. So write those emails down like we mentioned. They'll definitely help you out if you're undecided on a major. But any questions or anything like that? All right, I'll take that as a no. Jesse, thank you so much for joining in this.
It's been a
I think it was
pleasure.
a really great conversation. I've missed seeing you because I'm no longer a COBOL, so it's been nice to kind of catch up a little bit.
I miss you
And yeah.
too, Drew.
And thank you, Roman, for being an awesome co-host, and thank you all for watching.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Thanks, everyone.